Hey guys, it's Mari, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Alright, so today, at times I always like to give, positive advice. And although today's video isn't technically going to be negative advice, I will say it might be very, what's the word here? Controversial in certain aspects depending on who you are. Now, the reason why I say this video might be controversial is simply just because it has to deal with handling your parents or family members, honestly, in general, in this context. So if you haven't already checked out the title of this video, it's very, like I said, depending on who you are, it could be a hit or miss. But I want to go into it because I do feel as though it's going to be extremely beneficial to your life specifically. So let's go ahead into the topic of, does your family's opinion really matter? And I'm going to say yes, to a certain extent. And what I mean by a certain extent is honestly just discussing more of your unsupportive families whose opinions technically don't really matter when it comes to your transition. Now, don't get me wrong. I do understand that a lot of times we use our parents for financial reasons and housing, right? A lot of times where we're in the beginning stages of our transitions, we don't have the opportunity to kind of just leave home whenever we have unsupportive families and kind of just branch off, right? We don't have the finances, we don't have the jobs. A lot of us are still in school, things like that. So I understand it from that perspective of what we're talking about, financial benefits of it. Yes, but let's think long term here, people. Long term is really what you want to think about when it comes to your transition and as well as your overall identity of yourself. So the reason why I like to talk about how your family's opinions don't really matter is because they don't. Only when it's unsupportive. Now, if you have supportive family members and they support your transition, now I think you should have more of an open mind. Right now, I'm not going to say for me. My mom, when I first came out, she wasn't 100% on board. She asked a lot of questions and she was very concerned about me doing this. So I understand at first where she wasn't 100% on board, but she didn't deny me making the decision to go ahead and do it if I chose to. Right. So if you have families that's like that, where they're kind of like on the fence about it, I definitely say always listen out to what they have to say, because my mom's concerns, which I'll actually bring up a little later in the video, were, something that I actually did have to think about, right? I had to think about safety. I had to think about my health. These are things that you want to actually take into consideration when it comes to your family's opinions, but that's only if they support you. Now, if you have a family that doesn't support you at all, they don't support nothing, not a decision making that you said, they're like, we will cut you off and this and that type of unsupportive family members, baby, those opinions don't matter. They don't. And I'm going to go into a couple of reasons of why those opinions absolutely 1000% do not matter when it comes to your transition. A lot of people want you to live a life that they envision for you. Listen to that one more time. A lot of people want you to live a life that they envision for you. People, that's already a red flag for me right there. I've had a lot of conversations with people where I had people tell me about how their families are very unsupportive of their decisions and they want to learn how to navigate the world without, their support. And I've even had a time in my life where somebody envisioned a life for me and I followed that path and it ended up turning into shit. Very unhappy, very depressive, very low point in my life. Because I took on the path where I let somebody else envision it for me. And it was absolutely not my best. And I absolutely hated it. Moving forward to a time of where I actually decided to say, I don't want to worry about what other people envision for me. I want to envision the life that I want for myself, is where changes came about. And of course, positive changes, right? Look at me now. Like, I'm extremely happy within myself. I want to help other people live the life that I have, which is why I make these videos. And it just actually made more of a positive contribution to my life. With that being said, don't ever take advice from people who want to envision a life that they have for you, because I'm not saying that it might not work out for you. Never saying that. What I am saying is that normally what they have envisioned for you is normally something that you're not going to end up liking. That's one. But then two, sometimes that path just isn't the best fit for what you want. And of course, this is all centered around gender identity. But of course, you can take that advice for other things as well. But yeah, like I said, this video is all about you. It's about you. You make your decisions. You decide what makes you happy. So you determine the life that you want to live. I always have to tell this to people. And it's not that I'm saying this to smack you in the face every time. I'm telling you this because you make literally every decision moving forward within your life. You decide if you want to go to the store. You decide if you want to buy this brand new car. You decide if you want to do this. So you decide that you want to transition. Usually we don't just come out the woodworks and say that we're just going to transition just for the fucking fun of it. Normally whenever we decide that we're going to transition, it's actually years of build-up of things that happen within our lives that made me decide, you know what, I don't like this body that I'm living in, and I don't like the identity that I identify as. I'm going to change it to something else that makes me more comfortable for myself. It makes me more happy. So, with that being said, don't let others envision your life. You envision it for yourself. And I want to point out too that, you know, having unsupportive family members, having that family rejection often leads and ends up creating mental instability. It ends up creating substance abuse. It ends up creating all of these negative contributions to your life that will actually deteriorate you as an individual, right? And like I said, family rejection is so much of a key point to how we navigate our lives moving forward. And I don't know, a lot of people think that family rejection is triggering, but it absolutely is. Don't let people tell you that it's not. Whenever we hear rejection in any sort of form or fashion, probably 85% of us, 90% of us take that, and every time we move forward, it's a trigger, right? Like, let's say that first boyfriend or girlfriend that you had, they rejected you, or, you know, or something happened, right? Moving forward, now you have trust issues, right? Or now you're like, I'm not going to do this because I fear getting rejected. It's the same thing with family rejection when it comes to your transition. The fear of you getting rejected by your family initially before you even come out and transition normally ends up defecting whether or not you're going to, you know, that deciding factor of, I'm going to end up transitioning, moving forward with my life, right? Damn, that was like so clear to the point. But basically, you know, like, you usually, if you think that way, you're like, if my family tells me no, I'm just not going to do it. Or if my family rejects it, I'm not going to do it until this, right? Or I'm not going to do it at all because at this point, if I do it, I'm just not going to have nobody in my corner. You know, you have to think about all those factors of rejection, which I totally, absolutely understand. Now, I will point this out. Of course, you know, those who actually end up having good support end up living better lives, having better mental health, and living better lifestyles. So, yeah, that's why we want the support, right? We want the support because we know it's going to help us in the long run. But sometimes, knowing that rejection can actually create the opposite of that is the reason why those unsupportive family members' opinions don't matter, baby. Now look, I understand that most of us in this, like, that's watching this video right now, loves their family. I love my family to death. Absolutely do, 1000%. And you should too. Now, I understand that as well, we have to think about how our families view some things, which is the only reason why I feel as though your family's opinion doesn't matter, especially if they do not respect your wishes of transitioning and just becoming the individual that you truly want to be. That's where I fall short. You know, oftentimes, I've been in a lot of situations where people will tell me that, I ask, like, why do you think your family doesn't support your transition? And all the times that I've asked this question and got answers back, there's normally really 3 answers that's extremely common to that reason. One of those is going to be they don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, right? And listen to that question, right? Well, really listen to that answer. My apologies. Listen to that answer. I don't understand why you're doing it. And see, that's where I fall short when it comes to people when they're asking, I don't understand why you decide to do it. Honestly, if I decided that I want to transition, then that means it's my decision. I understand the trials and errors of what I want to go through, right? Usually a lot of times, yes, some people do go into their transitions blind because there isn't much out there, especially back in the day for those who are much older and further along within their process, that they don't have the resources that we have now. They didn't have books, they didn't have social media and things like that to actually look up to individuals. I absolutely get that. But at the same time, if you make the decision to transition, then I understand why me specifically as this individual here, understands why I'm going through this transition. I know why I'm doing it. So I don't understand why family members will say, I don't understand why you're deciding to do it. Well, me personally, decided to do it because I feel like this is what's going to make me whole. Automatically a dead question for me. I'm sorry. And I apologize for that. But that's just my opinion for it. The second answer is it doesn't follow our religion. Now, let me sum up the religion part, because depending on who you are in different religions, it's okay. All right, you got people that's Christians, whose families are Christians. You got Buddhism, Hinduism. There's so many different religions out there, right? I understand that. Let's start with the basis of Christianity, right? I know that people always say in the Bible, they say that being gay is a sin. We always hear this. Being gay is a sin. Technically, the fact that pedophilia was actually the word that was replaced for homosexuality doesn't match the criteria of what you people say. The Bible gets written in different verses and different things all the time. And I'm not saying that none of it is wrong or that you can't follow any of the beliefs that the Bible does put out there for you. The problem is a lot of things that we do today is a sin, apparently, into God's eyes. If you think about it, right? Can't wear makeup. Women, you're not supposed to wear makeup. It's against, that's a sin if you wear makeup. You can't wear pants. Same thing. Whoever decided to make all these versions of the Bible, right, said, I'm just going to keep adding things in here to oppress people. Mostly women and the LGBTQ plus population. If you honestly think about it, right? In the Bible, men are superiors. Right? They hold all the power. They can do all these things. They make all these rules. That's what they wanted. Women, they're not supposed to do these things and this thing. And of course, they decided to put the word homosexuals in place of pedophilias back in the day. So technically, these people who always say that religion is key to why you should not decide to do these things is absolutely and complete bullshit. Okay, and I just want you guys to know that. And you can look all this shit up on Google, because Google will give you all the answers, right? Even if you do have a religion, and everybody has at least some sort of God around here. And if you're atheist, of course, the rules apply differently. But if you all have a religion, and all religions, although they have all different things that they follow, they all follow under one God. As I just said before, God knows your true intentions. He or she did not decide to say, once this child comes out, that this child is going to be this. Everybody is different in their own ways. And I think that gender, yes, on a spectrum, has the ability to allow you to express that in unique ways, whether that's you transitioning fully or transitioning, of course, by definition. So where people come up to me and they ask, or they say these questions or these answers, my apologies, saying my religion is, it's against our faith. This is not what we believe in. God made you as you are. Exactly. God made you as you are, meaning that whatever I decide to move forward with within my transition, He's making me into the individual that I want to be. So He made this. He made this brain. This brain decided that I'm going to make these decisions. He made the body that I actually want to decide to choose on. because it's my brain, my body, my heart. He made me as I am internally. Externally doesn't really matter compared to y'all. It shouldn't matter, because internally, if I'm still a decent human, at the end of the day, that should all matter. I don't understand the whole thing. I feel like this is all an aesthetic thing that people just very unpleased by. And at that point, I feel as though we shouldn't even have this conversation at the end of the day. Honestly. And the third answer that I normally get is that you're going to regret your decision. Now, don't get me wrong. I have seen people who transition, detransition, and sometimes even transition again, and probably even detransition one more time. It happens, right? We change so much over the course of years that yes, there is a possibility that you might transition and then you decide that you want to detransition. It's extremely possible. But what I will say is that I don't think that any decision that you're going to end up making in the future for yourself, whether that be now, later, much later, is something that you should regret. I do feel as though everything in life is for a purpose. There's a purpose in life for everything. And with that, I feel like as though if you decide to transition and then later detransition, which is, like I said, possible, that you shouldn't regret the decision that you decided to make. Like I said, we always change. Things change, time change, our bodies change, things change, period. I think if you're going to go through a transition and you're going in it now and you're like headstrong, stay that way. And at the same time, don't be ashamed to make a decision later in life to where you feel as though there is a possibility that this probably shouldn't have been something that I did during this time. You're always going to learn lessons. We all learn lessons at some point. Be open to learn those lessons. Don't be scared to say that if I do this now, that later it's going to be the dumbest decision ever, or that my family's going to say it's the dumbest decision ever. Because your family, like I said, if they're unsupportive people and they're claiming that what you decide to do now is stupid, now unless it's like murder or something, please. But if you decide to go ahead and just transition and your family feels as though the reason why you're doing it is dumb because you're going to regret it, just do what makes you happy in the moment. Life is short. You never know when your time is. So for me, I always say just take it. Run with it. Have fun. Do what you want. Don't murder nobody though. Like, I'm not talking about serious crimes. This is all about transitioning and being one with yourself, okay, people? So don't take that and run with it and try to do something extremely outlandish. But don't think that you're going to ever regret your decision to transition. Because if you're thinking about the decision and you've been thinking long and hard about your decision, what's going to end up happening is that you're actually going to end up enjoying the life that you want moving forward. That's all I got to say. Now, this video, of course, is the concept of why your family opinions don't always matter. And I will say that I want to go into those whys. People might be asking me, Mari, if you're going to go into this topic, why might my family not be supportive of my transition? And sometimes we already might know that answer, right? But I do want to point out some key whys that might have you thinking that, damn, I never thought about it from that perspective. So let me go ahead and get into some of those. Number one, they might not understand your mindset on things. Everybody has different views on different things, right? We all have different views on work life. We all have different views on finances. We have different views on goals. And your family just has a different view on your transition, which a lot of times I have heard have been the issue. Now, I even get my own personal story on this. My mom wasn't 100% on board with my transition, right? She didn't see at the time the value of me transitioning. And that's only simply because I was a very, to myself type of child. So, I never was outspoken about a lot of things growing up, and especially anything related to my identity. So with that, my mom wasn't 100% on the same page as my mindset when I first came out as trans. As the time progressed and I decided to educate her on the transition and how much it would mean to me and moving forward with the entire process, she actually grew into that mindset. It's kind of just like, okay, look, You know, although, yes, this might not be 100% something that I'm okay with on my aspect of it, the main thing that I'm concerned about is you and your happiness, because you're your own individual. See, it ain't that hard. Okay, my mom never, you know, I think ever thought to be in a situation where she thought that she will one day have a daughter to end up being a son, especially over the course of 18 years, right? But she took the time to understand how important it means to me. And even now, I don't think she understood the significance of how much it's going to be doing as much as I do within the trans community, that it will end up being this. And I think as she continued to see how much it brought happiness to my life and how much it made me whole and actually made me a better individual personally, that's where she was like, I want to take the time to understand this. So now she does. Like, she asks me questions, she does all this stuff. So your family, one, just doesn't understand your mindset. And like I said, sometimes that could be based upon religious views or even just personal views, right? Our fans just be like, well, I wanted you to be a girl, so I want you to stay a girl, right? I don't understand why you have to go and change yourself into be non-binary or into a man, right? Why are we going down that road? And a lot of times that's not really their purpose of understanding it. It's really more for you. Now, I don't disagree about educating them as much as possible, because I always like to educate my family and friends regardless, because I want them to understand that it's not about them. It's about you and what you decide that you want to do for your life, because these people are only like your family and friends will always be in your life regardless, right? But at the same time, you're living your life for the rest of your life, right? So what you do today, tomorrow, only is affected by you. It's not affected by what your family does or what your friends do. So you decide the next steps within your life. So I always tell people, like, yes, you should always educate just so that they can be aware and be cautious of other individuals of where they'll have surroundings with, right? Especially nowadays. Like, there's a lot of people who come out within the LGBTQ plus community. More trans people are coming out within the community. So we have to take the time to educate people, even though they might not understand the first time around. Like I said, my mom didn't understand the first time around. But as I continued to educate her, let her know how important it meant to me, she actually decided to open up and say, hey, like, I understand that this is a big deal to you and I want to take the time to listen. Now, since the topic is unsupported families, that's one of the reasons why it might be very difficult for your family to understand that they don't understand your mindset and the value it means to you to transition. Another topic, of course, that you might hear pretty often is that they're dealing with their own struggles, right? They have their own issues, whether that be, spiritually, physically, emotionally, sexually. I don't want to get into it because that's y'all family, y'all friends. But, you have to think about everybody else whenever they're dealing with other issues, right? If you're in the process of transitioning and you're trying to come out, or, you're trying to live your life to the fullest, your parents could be going through a divorce. That could be something that could be extremely significant to, your family, and not only just your family, but your parents as well. Right, so they might feel as though that anger that they want to put with whoever, gets tossed upon you, right? So that might bring up an unsupportive family member, and that sometimes could be a long-term effect, right? Family traumas, financial issues. There's a couple of things that could trigger these struggles. It could actually be a sexuality thing between your parents or your family members that they might be going through as well, which could be very triggering to not only you, but of course bring upon other things like substance abuse, domestic abuse, and things like that. So you have to think about internal struggles that might happen in the back end, right? A lot of times, and I'm not saying this as like a personal experience, this is just, some things that we all normally see. Toxic masculinity, right? Most men don't want their sons to be gay, nor do they want their sons to be a trans woman. So toxic masculinity can come into place a lot of times. And I'm not saying that this is everybody's case, right? But we see men who have this toxic masculinity, like, I don't want my son to ever be gay. And it's so hostile that sometimes that could be an internal issue that they have within themselves that they were never able to express as a child. Like I said, this isn't everybody. Please, this isn't everybody. But what I'm saying is that could be an issue. We've seen stories, we've seen movies and things like that where and even personal statements as well, where people's parents don't ever come out, but they always wanted to, but they never had the opportunity to, right? Same thing for women. It could be the same thing. Like your mom could be like, I don't want you to come out. Your mom could always have this underlying thing that she might have been, you know, within the LGBTQ plus community, never had the opportunity to express themselves, pass that on to you, and now you can't do the same thing. So like I said, although that's more like an identity issue, like I said, it could be other issues as well that could kind of interfere with your transition to make your family not be as supportive to that. And sometimes that could be generational too, right? Like I said, we've been brainwashed, especially within the Black community. You know, if we think about back to slavery, we've been brainwashed with a lot of stuff. So we always think that what we were taught now is, you know, how we're supposed to live our lives. And during slavery, white people basically brainwashed us to believe a lot of things. So we passed down those traditions, unfortunately. And when we pass those traditions down, a lot of it is very heteronormative. And heteronormative can be more of the bad heteronormative than, you know, the average good heteronormative. So traditions could take a huge part. Generations could take a huge part of your transition, because your grandmother could say, I don't like this because this happened, and then of course as you pass it down generations, that can take an effect, right? So those issues can play a part, and those issues can be huge within your transition, which is another reason why your family might be extremely unsupportive of your decision to transition, which another reason why I don't like it. And I do want to say another reason why it might be unsupportive is that they might be afraid for you. And I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into this. What I mean by they might be afraid for you is that, I'll give an example myself. My mom, at the time when I first came out, she was very concerned about me transitioning from female to male. And the reason why is that at this time when I was transitioning, a lot of Black men was getting killed, of course, by police. And she was extremely frightened, actually, by the fact that there was a possibility that, yes, as she saw in my development as transition to a man, that she's seen how much my body had changed, she got worried that at some point, of course, you know, it's all this stuff can happen at any time. So she was extremely concerned that for my safety, not only with only the police, right, but at the same time of when I'm out in public, right? Let's say if I'm using the bathrooms and it's hard for me to use the bathroom, I can't use the bathroom, go to the men's bathroom. Let's say, you know, I'm at a pride, you know, or at a trans rally or something, and somebody just, you know, decides to harm all of us. Like, her concerns of my safety going through the transition, and that's not only with like public stuff, but she was also talking about the medicine and things like that, going through the surgeries, all this stuff she was extremely concerned about, because she knows, like, growing up I was extremely healthy, right? I didn't really get sick, my body was good, all my, you know, vitals and everything was great. So she's saying, of course, you transitioning and taking, you know, hormone replacement therapy and all that stuff, I'm concerned about your health and I'm concerned about your safety. It's the same exact thing with everybody, and not only just trans men, extremely huge in the transgender woman community, and as well as for those who identify within the non-conformist category as well. So, example for trans women. We are extremely concerned that trans women are getting killed, not only by Black people, but at the same time by men especially, and also even by the police officers as well. So you have to think about the safety of those who decide to transition. Now, families are afraid, and I can definitely guarantee that because I have heard stories that families are afraid for children to be out in the streets as they express themselves openly, that somebody can come in and kill them unnecessarily just because they hate that they're allowed to identify and express themselves freely. It happens, you know, and unfortunately, I understand the concerns. And I don't, honestly, this isn't even really one that I'm saying that is a bad reason why your family is unsupportive. It's actually a good reason. And I'm saying more of a good reason, like, it's more concerning that your family is concerned about your safety, right? Like, your family should be concerned for your safety, regardless, whether you transition or not. But sometimes your family might be unsupportive because of that reason as well. And I completely understand that. And I absolutely 1000% understand that. And they should be concerned for your safety as much as, you know, any other parent would. Because, you know, when you try to express yourself freely, yes, it's becoming more open nowadays, but it still can be very hard out here in today's society. But that could be another reason why your family might be unsupportive of your decision as well. So with that being said, I do want to point out a couple of tips for those who might have unsupportive families and how to move forward within your life basically without that support. The first thing I will say is that coming out to your family is optional. And I'm going to tell you why it's optional. It's optional because if you know that your family are going to be very, very unsupportive family people, you know, family members and things like that, you have to be concerned for your safety, right? Whenever we have rejection of our family members telling us, or us coming out to them and saying that we decide to be trans or even non-binary, you know, gender non-conforming, the concern is that it could be triggering to you. And that could be triggering, like I said, where it's domestic. It could be triggering to the point where you lean into substance abuse. It could be triggering to where it leads you down a road of depression and mental, you know, instability. So I want you guys to always put yourself first and put your health, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual first. Because like I said, you're your own individual. Right, usually we deal with our families until we're about 18. So like for those, if you're younger audiences watching this, this might be a little bit harder for you to kind of navigate right away just due to the fact that you are younger. But I still want you to always think for yourself first regardless, like especially early in life, because I wish I did think for myself first early in life, because I feel like I would have taken on a lot more risks, but not risk in a bad way, but good risks to prepare myself for when I turned 18 and, you know, and I actually was out on my own and did whatever, right? But think for yourself first always, because you're your own individual. Like I said, the way you decide to plan out your life is strictly based upon what you decide, not what your family decides, not what your friends decide. So take the time to get your thoughts ready and think about your why you're deciding to do this. You know, of course, the who, what, when, where, why, basically, that you learn in school of basically planning out your transition and thinking for yourself. Always think for yourself, people. I want you guys to always think for yourself, because you're your own person. Okay, like I know sometimes it's going to be hard right now because of finances and things like that. I get it, because not everybody's in fortunate situations, but please think for yourself. Think about your happiness. Think about your worth, your mindset, your mental, because I don't want you guys to go down a path of having to deal with anything domestic or mental instability or even substance abuse. I don't. Just because you want to live the way you do. I promise you, if you think for yourself, life will be so fulfilling. I absolutely can promise you that. Number 2, share your experience. Share your why. Share why you're deciding to do what you're deciding to do. Now, although your family might be unsupportive at first, like I said, my mom was unsupportive of my decision at first. Sometimes sharing your why and actually giving your family the time to listen to it might actually end up changing their decisions. Now, I'm not saying this is actually kind of optional too, because sometimes, like I said, the first part of this whole thing is optional, of you telling your parents that you want to come out and be trans, right? But if you do decide that and your parents are kind of hesitant on that decision, not hesitant in the way of where like it's extremely bad, like I said, where that be domestic or anything like that, but if they're kind of just like, I don't know if this is right, share your why with your family. Let your family know that the reason why I decided to do this is because of this. Go deep. You know, cut deep into the core with your family, because if they don't understand your purpose for that, their support won't be as essential as you think. Like, they won't be so much heavy on board on the train. So like for me, like I said, my family wasn't really on board at first. But once I kind of shared them my why and my reason why I decided to do it, and like I said, I cut deep into my transition, they took the time to realize how important it was. And they were like, you know what? Fuck it, you know. We support you 100% because we know how much it means to you. Sometimes if you share your why, that brings your family closer together to you. So, I got so much support on my back from family and friends now that, like I said, I would have never expected it, but that's only because I shared my why. Like I said, this is optional because I understand for some people, it might not be the best case scenario, but it can be beneficial if you have the opportunity to share it. Another tip, you gotta let go. You got to let go, people. And sometimes it's hard to do that. It's hard to get rid of family because, they say blood is thicker than water, right? But sometimes if it's too traumatizing, too triggering on you and your mental health and how you want to develop as a person, you're just going to have to let go of your family. And I know it sucks, and I know it's hard to say that because you will hope that your family will be the first people that you want that support from. But if it's too toxic to have in your life, you don't need it. Especially when you're going through transition. It's already going to be hard to go through your transition because you have to deal with so much, especially when you get on hormone therapy replacement. That's going to change a lot of your normal everyday things, right? Your emotions change, you physically change. A lot of things are going to change, and you don't need any type of toxic or terrorizing background noise coming as you're trying to figure out yourself. So if you have to let go of your family just so that you can live your best and most fulfilling life, you got to do it. It might suck, and it will suck, but it's going to better you as an individual, and it's going to help you better for your transition. Sometimes you got to do it. And of course, the next thing I want to point out is build your own support system. Guys, I want to tell you guys a quick story. When I first moved to Atlanta, I didn't know anybody. Right? I was alone. I was newly coming out. At the time, I was a lesbian first. So I was newly coming out as a lesbian, and I didn't know nobody within the LGBTQ plus community coming to Atlanta. When I went to school, I wasn't exposed much to it until after I left, when I transferred to a new school. But when I first went to my original school first, I knew people, but I didn't take the time to dig deep into their lifestyles, right? So when I came out, I was actually winging it by myself. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I was doing it right. And technically there's no right or wrong way to be gay or trans. But, at this time I thought it was. I moved back home, closer to home, to go to a different school. And at this time I met an individual who goes by the name of Kia, who actually helped me figure out and learn more about the community. Kia was the first person that I met who supported me cold-heartedly and wanted me to be my best self. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't know half the shit, or probably 55 to 65, maybe even 75% of the shit that I know today. And it's all because I had one person support me cold-heartedly, and as well as taught me more about a community that I had no knowledge of from the beginning. When I met her, that's how the entire network of other people that I met so far that's in the community has helped benefit me more to becoming and developing the person that I am today. And I want to say that having a support system is key. It starts with one person. When you meet one person, all the rest of the shit will follow along with you, and I can guarantee that. So that support system can also be your family, which is another thing. Now, I always like to point out, and I like to tell people, you have to create a second family for yourself. If you have your family and they're extremely unsupportive of your decision, find people, and specifically people within the LGBTQ plus community, who will support you no matter what. These people will end up becoming your family. I will guarantee you that. They want to make sure that you didn't live a life that they did, so they do everything in their power to make sure that you're well taken care of, that you're being heard, that you're getting guidance, that you're getting assistance, all of that. All of that. I probably got like a couple of, second families if I really wanted to divide everybody up, really. But I just keep everybody in one bubble because we're all, within the same community. But creating that support system and creating that second family for yourself is extremely key to your development and your transition. I bet you, if you're watching this and you know people who you have as a second family, think about how they impacted your life more than your own family has. Now, I understand that there's some terrible people in this world, but if you get the right support system, I can absolutely guarantee you guys that your transition in your life is going to be like an eye opener, which was technically what it was for me when I first came back to Atlanta and I actually met Kia. Like, it actually changed a lot. So with that, I actually moved forward and ended up making another best friend, KB, who has been extremely helpful within my transition as well. And that's not even my transition as like my physical transition, but my personal transition. So these little bitty things are top tier to helping you develop. I always like to emphasize having a second family because it means so much to me that I have one. Whether my family supported me or not, I always had them, and they never threw me out to the woods. They never pushed me to the side. They never was like, we don't want you no more. They continue. I've known Kia for probably, I believe, 3-4 years now. And still to this day, she supports me like no one else. I met KB probably about a year ago, and she still supports me wholeheartedly. So these people that you meet within your journey are key to your success and making sure that you are the person that you've always wanted to be. And they will continue to push you and challenge you to make sure that you become better people. Please have a support system and create yourself a second family. And the last thing I want to point out is follow your dreams when it comes to your transition. Like, if you have a set plan and you're like, hey, I know I want to do this, 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 and this with my transition, whether that's, like I said, fully transitioning with surgeries or without it, whatever your identity is or whatever you want to be and identify as and express as, please follow that and stick to it. Because if you don't, I'm not saying that like life is gonna be fucked up or anything, right? Like, things can happen. Like, you might have got into an accident, or you can't get surgery because of this, or health problems. I fully understand. But even if your transition does change in some sort of way or fashion, stick to whatever path that you have to identify yourself. Because, like I said, your life is strictly based upon you, not nobody else, not what everybody else thinks, strictly you. So whatever you like to dress as, however you like to express yourself, however you like to view yourself aesthetically, put that out there to the world to see. Because somebody is either going to look at it and look up to you, they're going to praise you, they're going to support you. No, it might not be a whole bunch of people, it might not be the entire world, but all you need is one. And that one person, I can guarantee, is going to make a complete difference. And it first starts with you. And when it starts with you and you have the heart and the soul and the mind and the plan to say, like, I know this is what I want, everything else is going to follow along. I promise you, everything else is going to follow along. So just take the time to think about what you want for your transition, how you want to view yourself, your identity, and things like that. And run with it, man. Just run with it. Because all it's going to end up doing is just going to make you happier at the end of the day. I promise. So follow that journey. With that, I'm going to have to wrap it up for y'all. I know this is pretty controversial, right? I talked about how basically your family's opinions may not matter. Honestly, it don't matter regardless, even if it's really for unsupportive families. I want to keep pointing this out. It's for unsupportive families. It's not for families that support you. Of course, if your family supports you, obviously they have great taste and that they actually care about you. But if we're talking about unsupportive families, sometimes their opinions don't matter. Like I said, you gotta let it go. You gotta let go of them people that's toxic and don't support you and what you decide to do with your life. And I know it's sad to say that, but those opinions are just going to deteriorate you and stop you from making the decision that you've always decided that you wanted to do. And like I said, people don't just come up with being trans one day and just be like, I want to be trans today. Like, that's not something that normally happens. It's actually something that happens from development of childhood and onward. So you know what you want and you decide what you want. So family's opinions, if they're unsupportive, baby, it don't matter. Keep pushing. I'll be here to support you. The whole world will be here to support you. You have a whole community that support you in the back end. You have somebody on your side. Know that for a fact. It might be hard to find them depending on where you stay, but the great thing is that we have support groups out there all across the globe, and the power of social media is a hell of a drug today. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. Of course, if you want to follow me on social media, you can do so at Mariiiwrld. That is MAR3IWRLD. Please like, subscribe to this video, share it to as many people as you would like. I know that's probably going to have some type of controversial background in the back, so I'm not even going to be surprised. But go ahead, like and subscribe and share this video to as many people as you want. As well as if you want to book any services with me, guys, you can go to my website at www.amariiwrld.com. And as well as check out my podcast on transgender history at the Transition Plan, available on all streaming platforms right now. And until next time, guys, I appreciate you guys for checking in, listening to my video. You guys know I already love you, I support you, and until next time, peace.